Hello, everyone, and welcome to the President's Quarters. It's quite an honor for me today for hosting this particular segment of our channel called hashtag Top 5 Examination Preparation Tips. Today, we're hosting an individual that we've had a very good relationship over the years. First time I came across him, his name is Nathi Mthembu. Was in my first year, even pre-first year, because it was before I actually started classes. It was my bursaries orientation camp, and he was one of the mentors there. And the funny story is that one of the key things we needed to do was to choose a mentor. So they said, all right, guys, so who would you want among the mentors that are here to mentor you? And honestly, Nathi was not on the options, but I looked at Nathi and I said, I want him to mentor me. And he looked at me and laughed and thought, I guess because he had a busy schedule, it's like it's going to be a bit difficult to do that. And yeah, we didn't really have that mentor-mentee relationship in that way. But I had to choose someone else. But then we always had a talking relationship. He was always available to speak. I remember when I got into my third year and had to ask him about different tips about how to approach certain subjects. He was always available and opened his doors. So that's the kind of person that I'm dealing with today, and you're going to learn a lot. So Nathi, welcome to the presidential quarters. How are you? How are you, my brother?
Thanks, Frank. I'm good. I'm good as level 2, so can't complain much.
So thank you very much for pulling through. So shortly he's going to share his top 5 exam prep tips. You don't necessarily have to be doing purely just accounting, but the important thing is listen to the principle of the tips because you can apply it even if you're not doing accounting. So the stage is yours, Mr. Mthembu.
Thanks, Frank. So, good morning, everyone, depending on what time this is getting released. My top 5 tips. I don't think they are in any specific order, but they are my main 5. So the first one is consult with your lecturers. I think if I had implemented this myself, I would have been at a better academic, well, my transcript would look a bit better. I think also I was a bit stubborn in terms of trying to learn things myself, but consulting always helps and it saves some time. So consult. The second one, most of all, is protect your space. So if you are going to be studying in your room, then try to separate your bed and your study table as far as possible, because you cannot be eating where you study, you cannot be sleeping where you study, because your brain functions that way, just like how people wake up and go to work. And now we are working at home instead of, like, do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So you really need to separate those spaces so that you can draw the line that when I go to sleep, I'm going to sleep. I'm not going to be thinking about the topic that I just revised.
Yeah.
Another thing is with regards to protecting your space, this applies during studying, before the exam and after the exam. So before the exam, it's a thing of when you get to the venue, you're not going to be discussing topics with your friends because someone might mention something and it's going to throw you completely off and your exam mojo is gone, right? So always protect your space and your peace at that time and just be to yourself before the exam. And the same applies after the exam as well. Once the exam is done, it is done, right? You cannot be trying to look in your textbook to see if you hit the correct point or discuss it with your friends, because that again is going to cause some anxiety. And you're going to end up feeling bad and you're not going to perform at your next exam, right? So that's the second point, protect your space. And then the third point is with regards to your study timetable, right? I always go by the rule of keep it simple, don't make it too complicated, right? So there are 2 phases of your studying that you're going to have. You're going to have the phase of studying while there's lectures going on. So with that, I'd recommend maybe keep it to 3 hours after your lectures. So maybe if your lectures end at 5, maybe start at 7 and you're going to end at 10. Right? With the regular intervals in between. And then if you are on full study mode, try have your study session structured like you're in a lecture. Start in the morning, have a 45-minute period, have your 15-minute break, and go on and so forth, right? And also allocate your time very, how can I say it, based on your strengths and weaknesses. But do not neglect the thing that you have a strength in, because there's always room to improve. Unless you're getting 100% for your exam, then you're not at the main point. What did I want to mention? Cool. So the best way to allocate it is if let's say there are 4 subjects that you need to study for, and you have one strong one. Based on your time allocation, at least reduce 25% of that time and reallocate it to the topic that you most struggle with. Because what that does is that you're still focusing on all 4 subjects, but you're putting more focus on your weaker subjects, right? It's quite obvious, but it's quite difficult to implement as well. And then, like I've mentioned, know your strengths and weaknesses. If your strength is working at night, do that. If your weakness is like maybe cell phone distractions or whatnot, you need to make sure that you use those weaknesses to your advantage. So if your weakness is being on your laptop, rather use your laptop during your break so that you satisfy that weakness. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then my final point, number 5, is to find time for yourself. I think that's very important to have. I can't call it a balance because it will never be balanced.
Sure.
But you need to always slot in some time for yourself, be it meditation, be it some gym or time with friends. Because what will happen is if you're so consumed with the content that you're studying and the stress and the anxiety, you're going to end up feeling miserable and you're not going to perform optimally.
Sure.
Right? So that's how human brain works. It needs some balance.
Sure.
So just to round up my top 5 points, the first one is consult. Second one is protect your space. The third one is keep your study timetable simple. The fourth one is know your strengths and weaknesses. And the fifth one is find time for yourself. I hope this will help in terms of your exam preparations. All the best.
Thank you very much. I'm sure it will add value to someone's life. And we've mentioned quite key points. And I think in one of my videos I've already mentioned, and I'm going to do one about how the bed is your trap. Because we tend to, when we take breaks, I said, no, let me lay down 5 minutes. Before you know it, you've negotiated an hour of laying down, and it's quite difficult to go back to studying. And I found it to be a very important point to say, separate your working space and also your chilling space. When everything was normal for me, I knew my room is not for studying. This is where I go to sleep, but I make sure during the day I'm at the library or somewhere studying, because my room is where I relax. So I found that to be a very important point that people need to ensure they note. Thank you very much for your top 5. I'm excited to put it online. And yeah, leave us with 2 things, a young quote that you know you always live by or you would encourage a student to hear at this particular point, and any social media handles if you want to be followed on social media. And yeah, and we'll wrap it up.
Thanks, Frank. So in terms of my quote, I've lived by this from, I think, maybe high school, my late years in high school.
Sure.
It is, if you've always done what you're doing, you'll always get like what you've been getting. So if you see that what you're doing is not working, switch it up.
Sure.
If you see that maybe this even applies in the workplace, if you see that working for a full 8 hours is not working for you, find some time in the middle to just squeeze in some time to just shut off a bit, you know. Yeah, and then in terms of social media handles, I am on Facebook, not active though. It's Nathi Mthembu, and the same applies for LinkedIn. I am not on Twitter. And on Instagram, it is Nathi_Tom.
Oh.
And that's it from me. Thank you, guys.
Sure thing. Thank you very much. Do follow, because I know he's not a super big on social media, but I think he's one of the key people to watch out for the future. For me personally, I will make sure I'm keeping him close. WhatsApp, I'll be there. Social media, I'll be there. There's a lot to learn. And yeah, all the best for the rest of the year and the different audits you engaged in. And thank you very much for coming through to the President's Court.
Thanks, Frank.
Sharp, sharp.
Cheers.